What's the difference between the Callaway Apex Pro and the Callaway Apex CB irons? Firstly, on the Pro model, we've got a slightly wider looking sole, so we've got more surface area here, which makes it a little bit more forgiving in terms of turf interaction. As we look at it from this angle, we've got the offset here where this bit goes there. That sticks out a lot less in the CB, and in the Pro, we've got a little bit more pronounced hosel there, so there's a little bit more offset, which tends to help the ball get a little bit further left. So the CB doesn't have that as much. I'm going to hit them on the Dynamic Gold Mid X100 115 shaft. We'll get a few shots underway, have a few whacks, and see what the difference in launch, spin, height and distance is between the two heads. I'm going to hit all of these shots with the Callaway Chrome Tour X, so it does spin that little bit more, it gets a bit more control into the greens for an iron. By all means, it is a very good golf ball from what I've seen so far. First club we have is the Apex CB, cavity back. Again, we've got like minimal offset, so this doesn't stick out too much in this bit here. It's got a nice clean top edge there sitting behind the ball. Cavity wise, we've got a nice cavity at the base of this golf club. And generally speaking, the more weight you have at the bottom of this golf club, the more the ball's going to launch up. So the more weight under, we get higher launch and lower spin from that element of the club. When a club's got more weight lower down, we get higher launch and lower spin again. And that's why some people go for more bladed heads, because they launch lower and spin more. So when you get that lower launch and more spin, you get more control into the greens. But in today's modern world, we can choose a more forgiving head for the off-center hits and choose a golf ball that will give us just as much control into the green. Tiny bit thin. Now I can't say I'm swinging cold because I've just recorded another video, so that is not an excuse. That was better. Nice little draw. It feels nice and solid off the face. I feel like there's just a little bit less forgiveness than something that's got more cavity, obviously, because there's less meat on the club. And I purposely hit the first shot thin just to show me how forgiving the head is. But it looks good behind the ball. I think the standard lie angle for a Callaway is a little bit flatter, which will hold the ball to the right a little bit more, which is really quite handy on these sorts of clubs, because these sort of golfer might tend to hit the ball left when you've got more forgiveness, more cavity in the club. That player tends to hit it right, so a little bit more upright, just balances out that little bit. That's why if you're fitted for a set of clubs one day and you're told that you're 1 degree upright, for example, don't assume that you're 1 degree upright on every other golf club on the market. All of the standard lie angles vary from brand to brand and model to model, basically to suit the idea of what that golf club is trying to achieve. Nice. A little bit more draw than I'm used to, just because it is a little bit more upright than my stock set, or the set that's in my bag. Now I've seen someone with the CB irons blend it, so they've got the Callaway Apex Pro in the 4-iron only. I quite like that idea. I quite like the idea of having a more forgiving head at the top end of the bag, so your longest iron just having a little bit more meat on it, just because you play different shots with it and you're more likely to misstrike it. The only thing that really just caught my eye when I was looking at that 4-iron in that man's set was that it did have that little bit more offset. So in the Apex Pro, we've got a quite slick looking head. We've got like a fairly thin top line, so it's not too chunky, not too garish. We just have this bit here sticking out that little bit more. So you can just see a little bit more bulge on this part of the club. That catches my eye quite easily because I'm quite conscious of that area of the club. But normally when you've got that little bit more offset, you've got a big chunky head. But in this case, the blade's still quite a nice size. So like I was saying before about the cavity on the club, we've got a nice chunky bit here. It does look a lot thicker and fatter in this part, so we've got a bit more weight under that ball. When you hit it off center and it deflects, you've got more weight to stop it from deflecting, stop it from varying. But so let's have a whack with this. Same looking lie angle, they're both standard. Caught that a little bit heavy, but it did feel like it flew off the face quite well, even though I misstruck it. The blue line on that screen doesn't stand out very well. Yeah, that felt pretty solid. Nice tight little bit of shape. Definitely flying higher, so there's a more height from this club, a bit more peak height. That could be affected by the wind in a different way to the lower launch of the CB. Yeah, nice shot again. Tight little draw. Definitely easier to get through the ball with this. Definitely a bit nicer off the face in terms of off-center hits. Feels nice and solid through the ball. I feel like it depends where my golf is. If I wasn't playing much golf, I'd probably lean more towards the Pro, to be honest. Although I've got a high spinning ball and the spin rate is a bit low, so then you've got to compromise somewhere. If I was playing full-time golf and I really needed to throw some golf balls at a pin, I might want a little bit more precision in the flight, but I've just hit the ball straight at the pin 3 times in a row, so maybe. So the first shot with the CB was quite thin, and that shows up in the data. I'm just going to hit one last shot with the CB, just to give it a nice fair comparison. Not bad, not bad. Again, that was just a little bit thin. So the off-center hit is a little bit less forgiving. It's got a little bit more distortion when you're not quite catching it pure. So you do need to kind of like test these things, I think, in my opinion. All right, let's get through this. Yep, just like that. So I had to summon a better swing to make sure I hit the middle of the face. I couldn't get complacent. So there is 2 shots there I'm gonna ignore on this one and this one. Just so we're comparing middle to middle. Peak height Apex Pro 111 against 117 with the CB. So the CB a little bit higher launch, interesting. Even though I've ignored those 2 thin shots, bear that in mind. Spin rate 5.9 against 6.5. More spin, more height with the CB. So the Apex Pro lower launching. Comes off the face at a very similar angle, 17.6 against 18. But even though the Pro felt that bit easier to hit, it just felt easier on the off-center hit, I've got a bigger spread in distance for me. You might be comparing something like this that's got a much bigger cavity, and that could be the one that gives you more spread, and you could go into the Apex Pro and see that lower dispersion. I'm working on a different spectrum, so I've got more spread in the Pro and then a tighter dispersion in the CB, just because of where I strike the ball, apart from those 2 thin shots. But more speed on the CB, okay, interesting. A bit more variance in the speed, so a little bit strike related, but it's just a bit more precise when we get up here. Very different spin rate. 600, nearly 700 more spin with the CB, which falls in line with the idea of where this weight is. The more weight under the ball, the higher launch, the lower the spin. The spin's actually quite similar, so the lofts are going to be different compared to each other. They won't be exactly the same loft, so the loft could be influenced that launch, but where the mass is situated is influencing the spin rate. Ultimately, all these things here, we're 1 yard different here. Variance 2, 182 against 183. But I'm liking that tighter dispersion, I'm liking that tighter spread in the CB for me. So if you're looking at these 2 irons, the CB and the Pro and the Apex model of clubs for Callaway this year, you're going to find a little bit more height and more spin with the CB. And it could be that they're a bit more lofted, which encourages that slightly higher flight. And then we've got stronger lofts in the Apex Pro, which launches it that little bit lower, spins it that little bit less, and where the weight's placed in the head also influences that launch and sort of mid-height trajectory. Again, I like the idea of having a Pro in the longest iron, or even like Pro in the top half of the set and then CB in the lowest half of the set. It depends on you as a golfer. But certainly go and give these a whack, because they're very nice indeed. And if you want to see more comparisons on this channel, do jump in, subscribe, and click on the next one.